They say a man's past always finds him, but no one warned me it would arrive dressed in navy blue, carrying a child who looked like a secret carved out of my bones. And before we dive into what happened that day, the day a Korean CEO saw his black ex walk into his wedding with their little girl beside her, go ahead and like and subscribe if you believe fate doesn't knock gently, it kicks the door in when you least expect it. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because I need someone else to gasp with me as this story begins. Now, the moment I stepped into that ballroom, the chandeliers glittering like 1,000 watching eyes and the music humming with the kind of polished cheer only rich people can afford, I felt a strange current, a tremor, as if the universe had inhaled sharply and forgotten how to exhale. Everything was perfect, too perfect, the kind of perfect that makes you suspicious, like a still ocean hiding a storm underneath. The groom, Kang Min-jae, stood tall at the altar, the tailored charcoal suit hugging him like it was crafted by the gods of wealth themselves, his hair slicked, jaw sharp, expression cool enough to refrigerate the champagne behind him. His bride, Baek Haeon, heir to a dynasty thicker than their guest list, floated down the aisle with a soft smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, the smile of a woman marrying a future, not a man. The guests murmured, phones discreetly tilted, documenting the union of two empires. But I, standing near the side doors, scribbling mental notes like I always do, felt the tension under his polished exterior, a hint of a storm in his dark eyes. Like a man who knew the cost of every decision he'd ever made and was terrified that one of them might return for vengeance. And then, like a single wrong note slicing through a symphony, the doors at the back of the hall opened with a soft but devastating creak. Heads turned first out of annoyance, then curiosity, then shock so sharp it rippled through the room like lightning hitting water. She stepped inside, Evelyn. Dark-skinned, beautiful in a way that didn't need permission, her curls pulled back, her shoulders squared with the quiet confidence of a woman who had learned to walk alone because no one ever walked with her. Her dress wasn't expensive, but it fit her like truth fits a confession. Yet it wasn't Evelyn who sucked the air out of the hall, it was the child holding her hand. A little black girl with soft curls tied in a blue ribbon, eyes too sharp, too familiar, too undeniably Kang Min-jae. A miniature reflection of the man at the altar, standing beside the woman everyone assumed was ancient history. I watched Minji's face strain of color so fast it was like someone pulled the plug on his soul. His hands trembled. His lips parted. His bride's bouquet slipped from her fingers before she could stop it. Gasps fluttered through the room, some whispered, some loud, some stunned into silence, as Evelyn walked forward with the calm determination of a woman who had imagined this moment 1,000 times and feared every version of it. Her daughter walked beside her, small hand in hers, looking around curiously, unbothered by the wealth or the stares, or the tension thickening the air. And as they reached the front, just a few meters from the altar where Min-jae stood frozen, the little girl tugged on Evelyn's dress, stepped forward with the innocent bravery only children possess, and in a soft, clear voice that echoed across the hall, she asked the man she had never met but instinctively knew, "Are you my father?" The room collapsed into silence, so complete it felt like the entire world was holding its breath. The bride's mother gasped loudly enough for the back row to hear. The groom's mother staggered as if she'd been shot. The Baek patriarch clenched his jaw so tight it could have cracked. And Min-jae looked as if the floor had vanished beneath him. His eyes locked onto the child, then onto Evelyn, and then back to the child as though checking whether the universe was playing a cruel trick on him. His throat bobbed as he swallowed, but no sound came out. I stood there, heart pounding, hands shaking, because never in my life had I witnessed a man's entire world collapse so quietly, so violently, so completely. And that was only the beginning. Because while the ballroom stood frozen, teetering on the edge of scandal, heartbreak, and truth, I felt a prickle race up my spine, the unmistakable sense that the story I was watching was about to unravel a past more dangerous, more painful, and more complicated than any of them were prepared for. And trust me, if you think this moment was explosive, what came next lit the entire foundation of their lives on fire. The silence that followed the child's question stretched so thin it felt like it might snap and slice the room in half, and for a moment I truly believed Kong Min-jae might faint right there between the altar and the altar of his own regrets. He staggered a little. Just enough for the closest guests to suck in a breath, though he recovered before anyone dared move toward him. His eyes locked onto the little girl with a mix of disbelief and recognition, so raw it stripped him of his CEO veneer in an instant, revealing not the polished titan of industry, but a man stunned by the sudden appearance of a truth he had unknowingly abandoned. Evelyn gently squeezed her daughter's hand, a silent gesture meant to anchor the both of them, though I could see the tremor in her fingers, a tiny crack in the armor she had meticulously built over 3 years of disappearing, surviving, raising a child alone, and learning how to silence every ache except the one that whispered. He deserved to know someday. But surely not like this. Not at his wedding. Not in front of the world. Yet here they were, and the universe seldom cared for the timing of truth. Min-jae, Evelyn said quietly, her voice steady in the way only someone who has rehearsed a sentence 1,000 times could be. This is Yuna. And Yuna, ever fearless in the ways only innocence can be, tilted her head at him like she was comparing him to a picture she had never seen, but somehow always recognized. The groom's mother, Mrs. Kane, found her voice first, a sharp, slicing whisper that wasn't meant to be heard but was, because the quiet in that ballroom was too complete. This cannot be happening. Remove them. Her husband attempted to pull her back down before she made a scene, but she was a woman built from pride and tradition, and scenes were her weapons. Still, Min-jae didn't flinch toward her or anyone else. He was staring at Yuna with the expression of a man realizing that the universe had been hiding a chapter of his life he never knew existed. Then he finally spoke, and the soft, cracking sound of it felt like heartbreak meeting helpless awe. Evie, why didn't you tell me? And with that question, the past crashed through the present like a tidal wave. Evelyn inhaled sharply, and for the first time since she walked through those doors, emotion flickered across her face, a mix of exhaustion, pain, and a long-held anger that wasn't sharp anymore, just tired. I tried, she said, her voice low but unwavering. I emailed. I called. I sent messages. I even went to your old place. Everything bounced back. Every door was shut. Her eyes flicked briefly toward Mrs. King, whose expression hardened like concrete at the implication. And eventually, Evelyn continued, I realized it wasn't you shutting me out. It was someone else making sure you never knew. A ripple moved through the wedding guests like wind through dry leaves. Everyone glanced at Mrs. King, whose polished poise had cracked just enough to reveal something darker underneath. But before anyone could point fingers, the bride, Baek Haeyeon, stepped forward, her face drained of color but shockingly composed, the kind of calm that comes when someone realizes their entire future is collapsing but refuses to break publicly. Min-jae, she said softly, is this true? Her voice wavered despite her best efforts. Min-jae swallowed hard, looking like a man trying to run backward through time to undo 1,000 mistakes. I don't know, he admitted. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know about Yuna. I didn't know anything. His eyes flicked to Evelyn again, pleading. But Evelyn shook her head. You didn't know because someone didn't want you to, she said. And I stopped trying because I was pregnant, alone, and exhausted. And when Yuna was born, she deserved peace, even if that meant she grew up without you. Yuna looked up at her mother, then back at Min-jae, processing each heavy syllable with the seriousness of a child who understands more than adults want to believe. You didn't want me, she asked quietly, her small voice quivering. The room collectively winced. Min-jae dropped to his knees so fast I heard someone gasp. He knelt right there on the marble floor, a groom at his own wedding, looking up at a child he didn't know existed until 2 minutes ago, but now seemed unable to tear his gaze from. No, he whispered, voice breaking. No, sweetheart. I didn't know. I never knew. If I had, his voice cracked, tears finally breaking free. If I had known, nothing could have kept me from you. Yuna blinked, confused and overwhelmed, but then something shifted in her expression. Children sense sincerity the way birds sense storms, and whatever she saw in his eyes made her take a tiny step closer. "So, you do want me?" she asked. Minjae let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. "More than anything," he said. "More than anything in the world." Evelyn closed her eyes, blinking back tears she had promised herself she wouldn't shed in this place on this day. But the moment was too heavy, too real, too full of the things she'd held alone for so long. Then chaos. Mrs. Kong lunged forward, grabbing Minji's arm. "Get up," she hissed. "You will not embarrass yourself. You will not embarrass this family." This woman left. She made her choice. "That child has nothing to do with us." Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a glass. The bride inhaled sharply. Evelyn stiffened, her hand instantly finding Yuna's shoulder like a shield. And Minjae, still kneeling, looked at his mother with a calm so cold it frightened even me. "Mother," he said quietly, "don't say another word." She froze, stunned, because he had never spoken to her like that, not in public, not in private, not ever. But not another word. And something shifted again, not in the room this time, but in him. His spine straightened. His jaw hardened. And for the first time since the ceremony began, he didn't look like a groom. He looked like a father. A man choosing who he would be from this moment forward. But the wedding? Oh, that was already dead. And the guests, sensing that this story had only begun to unravel, leaned in closer because no one had any idea what he would choose next. What happened next unfolded so fast and yet so excruciatingly slow that I swear the very air inside that ballroom thickened, as if it too understood that the moment had grown too heavy to pass easily. Minjae rose from the marble floor with the childlike steadiness of someone who had just been handed both a miracle and a devastating revelation, and the entire room watched him transform, not into the CEO they admired or the groom they expected, but into a man reckoning with his own past under a thousand glittering lights. "This wedding," he said quietly, turning first to the stunned bride whose trembling hands still hovered near where her bouquet had fallen, "cannot continue." A collective gasp burst through the hall, but Haeyeon didn't cry, didn't scream. She closed her eyes, shoulders sinking in a way that told me she had suspected for months, maybe years, that she never touched the part of him that could burn. She opened them again and met his gaze with a kind of resigned grace. "I deserve someone who chooses me without hesitation," she whispered. "And you've already chosen." Her eyes drifted toward Yuna, small, quiet, watching everything with the solemn curiosity of a child seeing the world tilt. Then Haeyeon stepped back, unfastened her engagement ring, and placed it gently into Minji's palm before walking away, spine straight, dignity intact. Mrs. Kang, however, exploded like a storm ripping through silk. "This is madness," she hissed, grabbing Minji's wrist hard enough to leave marks. "You will not destroy everything we built. That child is not ours. That woman is not welcome here. You will fix this. Now." But Minjae, something in him had shifted beyond repair. He pulled his arm from her grasp with a calm force that startled even her. "Mother," he said, his voice low, steady, dangerous in its finality, "you built a world around lies, and it ends today." Her face went pale, then dark with fury. "You choose them over your own blood," she spat. "I choose truth," he replied. "I choose what is mine. I choose what should have been mine all along. She left you." Mrs. Kong snapped, pointing at Evelyn like she was a contagion. "No," Evelyn finally spoke, stepping forward with a quiet strength that silenced even the murmuring guests. "I didn't leave him. I was pushed out." She locked eyes with Mrs. Kong, no longer afraid. "You made sure I couldn't reach him. You blocked my calls. You erased my messages. You paid my landlord to evict me. You told me he never wanted me. You made me believe disappearing was the only way to protect my child." The room erupted in whispers, but Mrs. Kang's face stayed rigid, though a tremor betrayed her. "Lies," she said weakly. "All lies." But then Minjae turned slowly, painfully, to look at her. "Is it true?" he asked. A simple question. The question. And the way she flinched barely, but undeniably, was all the answer he needed. Minjae inhaled sharply, a wounded, broken sound that felt like the first breath of a drowning man finally realizing how long he's been underwater. "You stole my family from me," he whispered. "You stole years I can never get back." His mother tried to reach for him, but he stepped away, stepped toward Evelyn, toward Una. And in that small movement, everything shifted, the balance of power, the trajectory of futures, the weight of the rune. Minjae crouched in front of Una again. His voice gentled, softened by the ache of 3 lost years. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know what being a father looks like. But I want to learn. If you'll let me." Una's curls bounced slightly as she nodded, a small smile blooming on her face, shy, hopeful, fragile. "Okay," she whispered. Evelyn's eyes glistened, though she blinked the tears back. "Minjae, this doesn't mean we go back to before," she warned softly. And he nodded. "I know," he said. "We can't erase what happened. But maybe we can rewrite what comes next." Then something extraordinary happened. The guests, who had spent the entire event caught between scandal and spectacle, began to applaud softly. Not out of politeness or gossip-fueled excitement, but because they had witnessed something undeniably human and painfully real. A man reclaiming the truth, a woman finally being heard, a child getting the father she deserved. As security escorted the Beck family out gently, and Mrs. Kang was led away shaking with denial and humiliation, the ballroom felt different, lighter, quieter, no longer a stage for a corporate merger disguised as love, but the birthplace of something raw and unpolished and new. Later, after the crowd had thinned and the last cameras had stopped clicking, Minjae, Evelyn, and Una stood alone in the now empty hall. Chandeliers flickered overhead. The abandoned wedding cake sat untouched. "I'm sorry," Minjae said again, softer this time, looking at Evelyn like she was both a reminder of the past and the hope of a life he had nearly lost forever. Evelyn sighed, her shoulders easing. "I'm not ready to forgive you," she said honestly. "But I'm ready to try." She extended her hand, not for romance, not yet, but as a gesture of possibility. Minjae took it. And Una, with all the authority of a 3-year-old who knew she had just reassembled her world, squeezed herself between them and took both their hands. It was imperfect, delicate, tentative. But it was real. And as they walked out of the grand hall together, no longer strangers divided by old wounds, but 3 people cautiously stepping into an unfamiliar but hopeful beginning, I realized something profound. Some weddings end in disaster. But some endings are the first step toward the right beginning. And this? This was one of those beginnings.